Welcome to FoodCorps Story Time Friday. Today we're reading The Blue Roses by Linda Boyden and illustrated by Amy Córdova. This book is dedicated to my wondrous family and to the memory of my grandfathers, John T. Simmons and Edward Louis Dargis. A special and forever thanks to J.B. and my editors, Laura and Louise. And to the sacred lives of children. May you grow and blossom in a safe and loving world. Mama said, on the day I was born, my grandfather planted a rose bush under my bedroom window. He dug the hole deep, threw in a few chunks of dead fish, then tapped down the soil. When I was 5 days old, my grandfather carried me out to see my rose bush, though I was too little to see much. He turned my head, and I spit up. Milk dribbled down his hand onto a leaf. My grandfather laughed and chose my name. Rosalie, he called me, his little rose. When I was 3, I could not say grandfather. My mouth wouldn't stretch around that great big word, so I named him Papa. He named me and I named him, but he never spit up on me. My mother, Papa, and I lived in a house on a street with 7 other houses. Mama worked all week long at the fish cannery. All his life, Papa fished on the wide blue sea, until the sea wind shivered his bones and made him cough. After I was born, he stayed at home to tend me and his garden. Our house. Papa's garden made our house different from the others. Vegetables grew during the summer, corn and carrots, beans and peas, in rows straight as pencils. Past them, yellow squash and orange pumpkins huddled in mounds like sisters sharing secrets. Flowers bloomed in tiny rainbows along our fence. Purple pansies, blue lupins, yellow marigolds, orange nasturtiums. Best of all, the red blossoms on my rosebush danced with every breeze. A green thumb, the neighbors called Papa. The little one too, they said and smiled. But their words made me hide behind Papa's leg. I didn't want our thumbs to turn green. Every day I checked, but we were lucky. Our thumbs stayed brown as ever. Every spring we planted. Papa hoed the rows. Behind him I dropped in seeds, round and bumpy or straight and smooth. Tiny promises, seeds, Papa said, the promise of a future. Inside each row, Papa placed chunks of dead fish he carried in an old bucket. I held my nose against the stink. Papa laughed. The bad smell goes away, he said. Put in the fish and the plants will grow strong. He tickled the back of my neck. Rosalie, a garden is the closest place to heaven on this hard earth. I listened, but secretly hoped heaven smelled better. On my 9th birthday, Papa planted 3 new rose bushes around my red bush, 2 pink and 1 yellow, to make a sunset, he said. He was right. The yellow and pink and red sky did shine in their petals, but I also liked the color of the day sky. Papa, could I get a blue rose bush too? He thought for a moment. Roses aren't blue, Rosalie. I asked him why not, but Papa just shook his head. Then he showed me my other present, my own garden plot. As Papa watched me hoe my rows, I remembered to stop in the middle each time to be sure the row ran straight. Papa smiled then, a wide, sparkling grin. A natural-born gardener, that's my Rosa. A coughing spell stopped Papa. He coughed so hard he lost his words. I hurried and helped him to the ground. For the first time, I saw Papa was old, so old that lines zigzagged across his face, and his thin silver braid quivered on his back with each cough. When Papa caught his breath, he looked in my eyes. Don't be afraid, he whispered. I told him I had to be, because he was so old. Papa laughed. Old's nothing to fear. I didn't believe him. I reached to touch one of his wrinkles. Wrinkles? They just tell the story of your life. What does this one say, Papa? He closed his eyes. One day, when I was at sea, the sky turned yellow-black. The wind howled, and wave after wave tossed my boat. I clutched the wheel, squeezed my face tight, and then Papa leaned on my shoulders to get up. Then the storm stopped. I sailed home, and when I looked in the mirror, there it was, my first wrinkle. Later, I stared in the mirror, hoping to find my own story, at least the first line. Instead, I found 4 new freckles, and in the morning I found 2 dead pea plants. Right in the middle of the row they drooped, brown leaves curled in empty fists. I threw down my hoe. They died, I cried. Papa tugged one of my braids. Everything dies, Rosalie. But they were new. They weren't supposed to. Everything has its time to die. New or old, it doesn't matter. Pull up the dead ones, tuck them under the others so they'll help, like the fish. When I was done, Papa leaned on his hoe. See how a garden works? Your piece grew, but some died. If you dig them into the soil, something new will come. We stood quiet for a minute. Then he said, "That's what I like about gardens, Rosalie. Nothing ever really leaves." That night, under my star quilt, I thought about plants, animals, and people having a time to die. I looked out my window. What about stars? Would they die too? I fell asleep listening to Papa cough, wondering about old people and the stars. Summer turned into winter. Late one night, Mama woke me. "Come say goodbye to Papa," she said gently. Goodbye? I wondered. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. Papa's room glowed with a soft light. He rested quiet, not coughing one bit. "Shh, Mama," I whispered. "Let's not wake him." Mama dropped into a chair and hid her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I looked and looked at Papa until I figured it out. Papa was dead. Even though I was almost 10, I climbed onto Mama's lap. After Papa died, our house stretched like a huge rubber band around relatives and neighbors. Aunties and uncles, elders and babies filled every room. The grown-ups laughed and told good stories about Papa. They cried and sang soft songs. The babies fussed and the little cousins gobbled cookies and fry bread. The noises swirled in my head, so I snuck off to the garden. There I could still smell Papa, and I told my cousin Mitch. He laughed and said I was dumb. Mitch thought he knew everything, but he didn't know how nothing ever really leaves a garden. After the funeral, the days ran down like a music box out of song. I went to school and I walked in the garden. I helped Mama and she helped me, but we missed Papa so much. Sometimes she'd cry, sometimes I did, sometimes we cried together. One night I dreamed I was walking through clouds puffy and white, climbing under them and over, yet never falling through. Higher and higher I climbed until I reached the top. Then I was standing beside a white fence, looking into a garden of flowers, a whole sea of colors, orange and gold, pink and lavender. "Rosalie," a voice called. "I knew you'd come." There was Papa, right in that garden, straight, not bent. His face was smooth and glowing, not one wrinkle. "Where are your wrinkles, Papa?" "Gone, now that my life story's been told." Then Papa pointed above his head. A trellis of roses curved around him. He pulled a branch lower. "Blue, Papa, my blue roses." He winked and smiled. I tried to open the gate to go inside to Papa and the beautiful roses, but he shook his head. "No, Rosalie, you can't come in." How could that be? We always shared our gardens. I tugged the latch harder, but Papa shook his head again. "It won't open for you, my little rose. Not yet." I started to cry. "But I miss you. And I miss you, Rosalie. We're in different gardens now, that's all. Remember how nothing ever really leaves? You tend the sunset roses and I'll tend the blue ones, and we'll be together." Papa smiled then, his special smile. It sailed into my heart and made me smile too. In a shimmer he faded like stars to the sunlight. I awoke in my bed, the sunset roses peeking at the window, the blue roses still in my heart. The rest of the year passed. I grew 2 inches and needed new jeans. Mama was promoted at work. I won the spelling bee and learned how to multiply fractions. Missing Papa became familiar, like a cut that heals as a scar. Mom and I still cried, but not every day, not like before. Planting time came again. I hoed and planted every little seed the way Papa taught me. I even put in the chunks of dead fish. School ended when the roses bloomed. I tied the longest branches of the sunset roses over my window to grow like the trellis in my dream. I wished on the first star every night for 2 weeks that they'd turn blue, but they never did. One Sunday morning, Mom and I ate breakfast at Dipsy's kitchen, donuts thick with chocolate and milk rich with foam. Afterwards, we drove to the cemetery to weed around Papa's headstone. I had planted rose bushes on either side of Papa's stone. Their bright leaves waved hello as we parked. I grabbed my hoe and started toward his grave, but stopped. Specks of color flashed from the bushes. Had someone thrown trash on Papa's roses? I ran fast, Mama too. When we stopped, our eyes stretched wide. Not trash, but tiny roses dotted the bushes, some full, some clenched, hundreds of beautiful blossoms, all blue as the sky or the sea or a wish inside a dream. My fingers touched a blue petal, and I heard Papa's laugh. Thank you for listening to our read aloud. We want to finish with some questions to reflect on some of the feelings of grief and sadness that this story talks about. It's hard to feel these big feelings, and sometimes it helps to talk about them. How did the characters in the book feel? How did their feelings affect their behaviors? Have you noticed any ways that your feelings and behaviors are connected? Are there certain things that you do when you feel sad, angry, or confused? If you want, you can talk about, write about, or draw your responses to these questions. Thanks for joining us for FoodCorps Story Time Friday, and we will see you next week.